Very good. We'll begin the EDIC meeting for today. We have just a few items on the agenda. Thank everybody for joining us, and it's 1 o'clock. So number one is to approve the Tax Exempt Review Committee meeting minutes of 10/24/23. And if we have any changes or corrections, and I think we may, then other than that, I think we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And do we want to, the further comments, do you want to bring up the corrections?
It's just a K in my name and then a B instead of a W for new members.
We apologize for that, and we'll make sure to get that corrected. And it is correct on your name in the front of the podium, so we
Making
apologize
progress.
for that. And thank you. And we won't say that we were doing that to make sure everyone's paying attention to the minutes. So we'll get that corrected.
Good pickup, Eric.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two, the John Deere application for a property tax exemption, and Jim Gilmore will get us started with that. Jim.
First off, the plant manager for John Deere was unable to be here today, and so I think we should just continue this item and not make a recommendation. Next month, the meeting would be December 26th, and because of the holiday, John Deere was comfortable waiting until your January meeting. And so, but I did want to just point out the project. It would be out here on 19th Avenue North. It'd be almost a doubling of the size of this building. They'd be adding jobs. Most of the jobs would be coming from some locations where they're leasing space in West Fargo, and then we don't really know how many new jobs to the metro there would be in the long term. So just want to see if you have any questions or concerns on this one, but otherwise we'll just bring this back in January.
So Jim, I guess I just have a couple of quick questions. So on the page 5, where it talks about the current number of positions, it's 188, and then the new positions is 62. It's on the lower part of that. So is that the current number of positions? Is that the current number, like you were talking about? Is that all the locations? And then, or can you talk a little bit about that? And like you said, maybe we can talk more about this when they're actually here. But to me, if those are the numbers, I'd just like to know what that is.
These numbers are for this specific location. They have a couple other facilities in town, a manufacturing plant out in the industrial park, as well as a facility up in the tech park with the Phoenix site. So what they'd be doing is adding 62 jobs to this particular site, going from the 188, and they'd be adding another 62. You'll note on there that you kind of got two lines. The 157 works specifically for John Deere. The others are more of a contingent position, which is a contract to another company. They are full-time positions. They do work there full-time, but they aren't employed directly by Deere. But they are all full-time jobs.
And if anybody else has any questions, please go ahead. But the other one is square footage. Does it show someplace what the current square footage is, and then what the new square footage will be?
The new square footage is about 84,000 square feet. The existing building is probably, that's the same size footprint, but I believe there's a second level in there, so I think there's over 100,000 square feet in there. When they acquired this site, the plan was that they could actually quadruple the size of this building and build to the west. Their plan is to build to the north with this addition, but then they'll continue to own this ground and have room for future expansion.
Okay, so just to summarize, basically you're saying it's this addition would be to the west, which is up on that picture that you're showing us, and it would be a similar size building.
Be up to the north.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Mayor.
Jim, when we look at the ratio calculator, 198 and 198 for 1 year and 3 year, according to policy, 100 is what we have to match. So 198 seems awfully good. Is there any rule that says we can't approve this today, even if the person isn't here? I mean, this all follows policy.
Yeah. There's nothing that prevents that. I know the manager wanted to be here just in case you had questions on how the facility operates. And then
Well, I mean, I know that Commissioner Pepcorn worked really hard on getting our policy right, And if it follows policy, basically what we had was if it does hit the criteria, we oftentimes will approve them. But, I mean, we can wait. I'm not objecting to that, but I just thought sometimes I love policy because if you follow an earned policy, it should be approved.
I mean, if you want to make that recommendation, you're comfortable with it, that's nothing inappropriate about that.
So if anybody else on the committee has any comments or
I
questions?
mean, if you guys have any questions, do you think it'll be cleared up with the manager? I mean, it increases the number of employees, it increases payroll. It's great payroll, over $28 an hour, and it should be a great addition to us. And John Deere is a great manufacturer to have in our community.
Absolutely. And I guess from the perspective of, obviously, we'd welcome to have them come and speak, but they can do that at the next commission meeting or whatever they, do you know what I mean? And obviously, I know this time of year, people have lots of other travel commitments and things like that, but go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, we've scheduled the hearing for December 11th at the city commission, and so we were going to have to delay that hearing. So if you do make a recommendation and they're able to attend that hearing, we could certainly keep it on track and get it done on that day.
So that's, any other question? John?
I tend to agree with the mayor here in terms of if it follows policy. The one thing that also strikes me is if you look at the number of new positions, 62 new positions over $35 an hour, I mean, that's a higher threshold in terms of other ones that we've looked at. And so, I mean, for me personally, I'd feel comfortable moving forward with this today.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Eric, any discussion items on it?
Nothing that hasn't been said.
I guess from all the points that have been raised are true, and so, but the main thing is you want to give them an opportunity to come and talk about what their plans are and their intentions, because obviously this is great for the city, and I do think the university works with them as far as new students getting internships and things like that as well. So go ahead, Jim.
Commissioner, I think too, it sounds like they'll be able to have and maybe an opportunity to speak at the city commission. So that might be a good platform for them to talk about some of the
Yeah,
items in here.
If they were unable to make the city commission meeting, we could then just delay that another 2 weeks and take care of it later.
Yep. Very good. Otherwise, if we're ready, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. And next one, number 3, I'm sorry. JNS Holdings requested for a letter of support for a building outside of Fargo. Jim?
This is a North Dakota Opportunity Fund. We've talked about this at a previous meeting. Mr. Iser serves on this committee, and it's a consortium of cities throughout North Dakota that are eligible to apply for this North Dakota Opportunity Fund. It's used most often recently to buy down Bank of North Dakota interest, to help businesses get started. One of the conditions is that you have to have a letter of support from a city that's a member of the consortium in order to apply. This is a unique situation, and we've had several others where I've just gotten to city commission, but you can see the location here. This is actually outside of the city of Fargo, and so I didn't want to just take it to city commission without some discussion about whether or not the city of Fargo would support provide letters of support for applications that were not in Fargo. Is that somehow unfair competition to a local business, or is the fact it's in Fargo and maybe the employees are Fargo residents? Does it matter to you? And so I'm really looking for direction here. I think some representatives from JNS Holdings are here, and maybe they'd be available to answer questions. This particular site, it's located on 100th Avenue South. It's an industrial area. It's actually in Fargo's extraterritorial zoning area. The city approved this subdivision, I don't know, 8 years ago, something like that, probably longer. And so eventually it'll be in Fargo, but it's not now. And so I want to get your thoughts on that. And maybe we could start off. I wanted you talking a little bit about the business and what your plans are.
And if you want to come up
Podium over there.
and speak at that podium, introduce yourselves, that'd be great. But maybe while they're coming up, maybe, I don't know, John, if you want to talk a little bit, but my perspective is, this is just an endorsement, and it isn't really like we're committing City of Fargo funds, but we're, and the evaluation is done by other people too, so that's part of it.
I mean, that's part of it. So like what Jim had mentioned too, every city within the state of North Dakota got a certain amount of proceeds. I think Fargo is the largest of the two, and it's essentially the lender that a business would work with. They would go and apply on behalf of their borrower to get an interest rate buy down. And so a lot of times, well, in these cases, you have to get a letter of support from certain community entities. And in this case, it looks like you guys are looking for the city of Fargo to do that. And so essentially that's really what it is. And so it's a nice program to get things started for businesses.
Go ahead, and if you want to just introduce yourselves and then kind of talk about what your perspective is.
Josh Johnson, and this is my partner.
Chris Shook.
We're a water and sewer excavating company, and we've been partners for 6 years now. This is our 6th season, and started out with the 2 of us and 3 employees, and we've grown up to 12 employees now, and we have been renting and for the past 6 years, and now we're building our own shop now, and this would be quite helpful just with to continue to grow, and with the cost of everything and the high interest rates right now, stuff too would
And so,
very helpful.
So from our perspective, this interest rate, that'll help your business grow. That's the main thing. And you're just, the city of Fargo is basically just helping them to continue to apply for this loan. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I don't know if anybody else has any questions or any other points. Go ahead.
I think if you're comfortable with it, I'd look for a motion to make a recommendation to the city commission that the city provide a letter of support. The city commission has signed off on all other letters.
Can I ask one more question, Jim? So if this goes ahead, then it goes, and then there's another group that evaluates this and does the approval. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a loan committee that's set up at it's the Lewis and Clark Development Council. It's based in Mandan, and I believe there's maybe even 100 cities that are part of this. And so it would be reviewed by that loan committee to decide whether or not they want to support the business. Is that correct, John?
Yep, that's correct. And so you'd have the bank, Kirkwood Bank and Trust, to be the lead lender in this situation. They put together the loan package for the business, and then they submit it to the North Dakota Opportunity Fund, and then they basically have a committee that whether they vote to approve it or not is essentially what it is. But in order to go through that process, one of the items that you need is a letter of recommendation.
And Jim, maybe not just specific to this situation, but when you're saying it's not part of the city right now, what year will it be considered part of the city?
We really don't know. It's kind of looking in the crystal ball. Maybe it's 25 years from now. Maybe it's 10 years from now. We just don't know how fast the city will grow.
Okay.
Eric, it really is dependent. If you look at how the city has grown in the last 20 years, basically how it's grown. And Davies High School, the governor was always upset about it. Davies High School wasn't within city, it was 2 miles out. And now that's all filled in. In 10 years, Dave, it's really done a great deal. So what Jim I'd love to hear what he says, but he would have to do is predict how fast our growth will go to that area. Commissioner Pipcorn thinks that once the diversion is done, we're going to have all things explode down south and can grow. So it's really who could predict that. City in the last 10 years grew 20% or 20% increased population. So it'd be kind of how you fill that in the space that you see there right by Walmart and such. There's room for 32,000 people. So that gives you a perspective of how long would we fill that, and that may take a little time.
And just to add real quick, so it's 98th Avenue. And so, but I will say this location is within the diversion protection area. And so all that land, and 100th Avenue, that's one of our arterials down the road. That will be one of the main arterials. And so it is, even though it's not within the city, it's within the flood protection and all those kinds of things. So
Great. Super helpful.
So does Johnson and Shook come in and help City of Fargo when we have an emergency break?
We try to.
Okay.
very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I guess we're looking for a motion, and basically the motion would be to have a letter of support. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
I'll motion to have a letter of support.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. Good luck and congratulations. And hopefully we'll be doing some work with you in the future too. So thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Very good. We'll move on to the last item on the agenda, discussion on property tax incentives. Jim Gilmore.
Since we had that joint meeting with the city commission, because I really haven't heard many comments, I did get together and met with both Mr. Barner and Mr. Eisert on some ideas, and I think we'll continue to do that and then maybe bring some formal recommendations to you in the future. Want to touch on a couple things that did come up at that meeting as I saw them. One was the idea that we need to do more monitoring of the businesses, and make sure that the employment is being done. And the EDC and Mike and assessors are already working on this. They've kind of set up as a test case for both Packet Digital and Corvent Medical to have them be able to report those results electronically, so the city can monitor them, so the EDC can monitor them. So, that software is getting to be in place, and so want to let you know we're making progress on that as far as monitoring all those projects, because I know that was a concern that came up. One of the other concerns was, the increase in wages in past performance. Commissioner Strand mentioned that, and so that's maybe one of the things we want to look at is the wage rates. Do we need to bump those up a little bit to try to get projects that employ, at even a higher rate? That John Deere application with all the jobs being over $35 an hour, that's way beyond the kind of our range that we look at right now. I think, Lucas had mentioned to look at some of the examples of past TIF projects and just get some more information. Commissioner Pepcorn mentioned that also, for instance, Bison Block, to take a look at what that looked like, 15 years ago. So we have some better examples of how these areas have been improved. Affordable housing, that was an issue. I think we need to look at how to coordinate, these tax exemptions with the money that the planning department has from HUD, that the money that the resources, the housing authority. Right now, I think everyone's, working on things, but not necessarily together, and it's not as coordinated as it could be into one or two projects. Commissioner Strand has brought up inclusionary programs on housing and rental housing. I think we need to study that, see if that's really applicable to Fargo, see if it would really help us. There was a comment about neighboring cities. What does Moorhead and West Fargo offer? So we're aware of that, and I'll look into that. As well as the growth plan. That was something that I talked to several of the committee members about, is whether or not some of these changes in the fringe should really wait until we've had a chance to kind of see that growth plan, see what direction the city commission wants to provide, and then kind of try to link the incentives to what's in that particular plan. Because when you look at the growth plan, I think this is a good image here. You've got about 8 square miles here. And you get much farther south, you run into the diversion. And over here, there's about 3 square miles. And so, our footprint to the southwest in the future is going to be more limited, and we may get to the edge faster than we want to. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at. And I don't know if you have any other ideas, feel free to give me a call or send me your thoughts.
Just a couple quick comments, Jim. One was, so the planning department, having us work together with them and then with the growth plan and to make sure that we're all working together, I think that's a great thing. We've had a couple of meetings along with the land trust and all the different things. We've had a couple of meetings, and I do think that's very important, that the incentives that we deal with, but they also go along with the planning department. And so, and Mayor, I don't know if you have any comments about that, but I do think it's important, and I do think we're doing a better job of having an open dialogue to make sure we're all on the same page. I don't know if that makes sense, but
The other thing, Jim, I would like you to address a little bit as we talk about surface parking versus garages. And I think downtown, we had to do that. I mean, we had to do garages because you couldn't park on street all the time. But I think in some of our developments, we should look at if we decrease the amount of odd surface parking versus building vertical. I think the growth study will show the more you go vertical, the better it is. And there's some incentives to go over 4 stories because you get kind of a repetitive type of look with the 4-story or smaller. Although we do need middle housing, I can understand that, but I do think the 2 elements that Dave and I talked about is middle housing we do want to look at is the smaller complexes, townhomes, those types of things that some of the public seems to like. And then just I think the water park question is, would it be better if they had a garage on that site to increase the taxable value we get out of it? Because then they'll put more apartments on that site. And I don't know necessarily how you twist that, whether that's in quote density. The one apartment complex I thought was 98 per acre. That's pretty high density. I think the growth study is doing 20 to 25 on a section of land is kind of where they're landing. So that's going to be a mixed housing, multi-complex housing basically type of thing. But I would like to address that a little bit because I think one of the things, if you drive down Veterans Boulevard, you'll see a lot of those little boutique shops and they have a lot of parking. It doesn't seem those parking spots are ever full. That maybe we need to look at a little of that. So.
Any other comments? But I do think this is good to make sure that we're all on the same page. The interesting, Mark Williams from planning made a good point. Incentives aren't always tax incentives and money. Sometimes it's the planning department, the incentives of where they allow to build. The city has different types of incentives. I don't know if that makes sense, but to make sure we're all on the same page, the growth plan, the planning department, the tax incentives, all of them are trying to accomplish the same thing. And I do think we're doing a good job of having a good dialogue and like the housing authority and the Beyond Shelter, to make sure we're working with them. I do think that's important too. And I do think we're having at least the conversations. So, and also the public schools, that's all those things together. It's complicated, but the mayor thinks I'm worrying about when the diversion gets done. We're going to have incredible pressure to develop. I can guarantee you we are going to have, and Horace as well, they are already, it's going to be a lot of pressure to fill that up. And to me, our responsibility is to make sure that we have it all planned out before it hits, because once it hits, it's hard to go backwards. I guess that's my only, do you know what I mean? Like to have these corridors, 100th Avenue, 70, to have those committed, because if you have to try to go back in time and get property, then you can't do it. And so that, to me, that's part of our call. So I apologize for my long-windedness, but I do think it's something that's important. So anything else, anybody else want to add to the good of the order? Otherwise, it's 23 minutes. That's usually one of my longer meetings for the EDIC, so I try to keep them short. So go ahead, John.
I just say that, right now we've got that 2030 Go Fargo plan, and I know that they've been working on that for a number of years. And so I think it's kind of timely right now where we're taking a look at some of the incentives that we're looking at as a committee. We've got hopefully the planning commission involved as well, along with some of the, the zoning regulations. The ones that I always sit there and think about is not only parking, but the water retention. I mean, there's a lot of different things out there that the city, along with other departments and the folks that put the plan together, can do to come out with some sort of a comprehensive package of how the city wants to incentivize ways to grow. So it's kind of an exciting time.
You know what?
Go ahead.
If I could take it. Jim, if you could sometime, I think it'd be good for John to see Lake Fargo, what we did in the Lake Fargo project, how we did do consolidation to do that. I think it would show the team what we do think about when we get to make where we're putting the utilities and how we're doing it. So just if you wouldn't mind, Jim, put that on the next agenda so we can just look at that and see what happens when we get to plan our utility.
The other thing, the growth plan, to participate in that, whatever you can do to become involved, it's really good. It's very interesting, but it will impact this committee without a doubt. There's lots of things but to me, the best thing is that we're all hopefully going in the same direction, because then we'll make sure we get the most value for the taxpayer dollar. So anything else to add, Jim?
No, don't have anything.
Very good. With that, it's 1:24. We are adjourned. Have a great day.